2-3 Miami Hurricanes at the 2-4 Virginia Tech Hokies. Here's how Miami wins.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, your host. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. And thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. Hurricanes at Virginia Tech. This is your preview episode, and this episode of Locked On Canes is brought to you by Sling TV. Don't miss this week's matchup between the Canes and Hokies right here on Sling. Sling, the TV you love, for a price you'll really love. Try it today. Want to welcome in our good friend, our boy Blue, Larry Blustein from 560 WQAM and the Six Ring Cane Show. Blue, how are you, sir?
Doing good, Alex. Thanks so much. Looking forward to a really good game this week, kind of a bounce-back game after what I think showed a lot of character. I mean, you know, people don't realize North Carolina's a really good football team. And for Miami to, to emerge in that game and come back, when they look like North Carolina could run away from them, I think that is step one in the character check. And, and you know as well as I do, the Hurricane fans, and they have a right to be antsy about everything because they haven't had, everything's been promised to them over the last, 20 years, and things never worked out. So, I can't tell them to be patient, but I can tell them it's going to take a little bit of time. And I think we saw what good coaching could do last week.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm going to consider this game in Blacksburgh. It's a must-win game. I mean, any slim hopes you have of competing for the Coastal Championship, like you're way behind the eight ball with North Carolina already, of course, but to keep those slim hopes alive, you've got to beat the Hokies. You're better than the Hokies on paper. You got to beat the Hokies. Also, even if we're just talking about the potential to be bowl eligible, you've got to beat the Hokies if you want to, look at guaranteeing at least 6 wins to end the season. And Blue, I want to start with the execution in the red zone. It's been a big deal for Miami. The Hurricanes are 82nd in the country in red zone scoring. And so a couple of things that I look at, I've had the chance to talk to some former Miami Hurricanes players, from Rashad Butler, former offensive tackle who joined us this week, Malik Rozier, who I do the post-game shows with on local radio. And, they've told me that, from like a blocking, running, short yardage standpoint, it's just so much about attitude, right? That's one. And then the other thing that I look at, Blue, is trying to create mismatches in the passing game. And I look now at Miami, you've got a big target like Will Mallory, who just had his career game in terms of receiving yards last week. Jaleel Skinner, who's stepping up and looking a little bit better every week, the true freshman tight end who's 6'5". He's got a very bright future. And then also my guy, Colby Young, finally burst on the scene. He's a 6'5" wide receiver. He's a really tall, lanky target. So, Miami should be able to have the length to get some mismatches in the red zone.
Well, they should. Obviously, but you keep reverting back to the Middle Tennessee State game, knowing that anything could happen at any time. And I want to go back to your red zone offense and why Miami sometimes the inability. I just think personnel-wise, and I'm not a coach, but at the same time, I am somebody who's been around the game, and I could see what works. And what they do is they do the right thing in between the 20s, but when you get at the 20-yard line, the personnel that they're using is not beneficial to what they're doing. And I mean Thad Franklin. Here's a kid, and I've said it over and over again, that is the type of back that you run from the 20 in. And, why put the punishment on Parrish or Rooster on Jalen Knighton? Because they're little backs. They're 165, 170, 175. They're not that big. And why put the constant pressure? Because you know that the opposing team is going to stack the box because Miami up until last week really hasn't shown that they, A, can hold on to a ball, and B, be effective in the passing game. So what Thad Franklin does at 6'2", 225, 230 pounds is wear down the linebackers, wears down the safeties. He's going to get 5 yards a carry, even at the worst 4 yards a carry, which is going to get you first down and into the end zone. I kind of scream at Coach Gaddis from the press box or wherever I'm watching the game from is, you know what? And I even had a conversation with Coach Smith at the Dillard and St. Thomas game saying, you know, Coach, why is Dad Franklin parked in the garage? He shouldn't be parked in the garage. I mean, he's that Lamborghini that you need inside. I mean, you know, to me, you know, I'm a believer in whatever it takes to win games. To me, if you're going to hurt, you're going to worry about hurting somebody's feelings. Come on. I mean, that's not going to get you out of the mess. So I think what they got to do and moving forward is when they get inside the 20 or they have short yardage to make, why waste your thoroughbreds? Because all you're going to do is you're going to risk injury, because remember, it'll be a tackle-to-tackle run, because on 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2, you're not running outside because it defeats the purpose, of the game plan. You want to go tackle to tackle, and there's only one guy on that team right now that has the power, that has the size and the durability, and to me, that's what's lacking in that red zone offense. And basically, what I think, by running him, it kind of opens up your tight end game for Mallory or whoever else is in there at the time. You had mentioned Jaleel Skinner and, you know, obviously Colby Young, who had some really good, had a really good game. And to me, I think North Carolina is a true measuring stick. I mean, they're going to be 7-9-3 most likely at the end of the year, and people keep saying, well, they're not this and they don't have that. They're offensively, they're as good as anybody that Miami will play this year, no doubt. I mean, they open up the game, they got a young quarterback, but on the defensive side, they've got athletes, they're young, and I think Miami performed extremely well, but this week to win the game, you're going to have to execute. And I know that, you know, even though that you're facing a team that, like you said, that you're better on paper, you were 18 times better than Middle Tennessee State. And there's not a kid on Middle Tennessee State that would start for Miami, not one. So that's what I'm saying. Things could happen. It's a mindset. You could tell when Miami came out for pregame, and you know, Jazz Santana and I watched doing our pregame show before the game. And I said, you know, Miami just, you know, the person with the most fire on the team is your head coach. And that shouldn't be that way. These kids should be just sky high for every single game, you know, because who are they to let down against anybody or take anybody for granted? Now they're going into a hostile environment, and thank goodness it's not 7:30. Because for some reason that Enter Sandman becomes a lot more daunting.
I've noticed
night,
that,
you know, at nighttime, but they're going into a homecoming crowd that's going to be that is sold out.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Miami has to put their head into the game. I mean, I don't care how bad, any team is, but when you give them a motivation to feed off of, I think that's going to be important. So Miami has to play, go in there, play mistake-free football. And then, as you mentioned, inside the 20 or in the red zone, they've got to come away with more than just a field goal, or they've got to start scoring touchdowns. There's no more moral victories. And you're going to see over the next 2 years, those moral victories are going to get less and less because you have a coaching staff that, that will hold their athletes to a higher standard.
Yeah. And this will hopefully be an opportunity, and you already started talking about it with Thad Franklin, who needs to be more involved. And I'm hoping from Henry Parrish to Jalen Knighton, who just had a nightmare game last week. I mean, it was nice he had that big 41-yard catch, but the fourth down drop and the fumble was just the stuff that nightmares are made of. So I want him to bounce back.
Right.
And you're going up against a rushing defense in Virginia Tech they're bang average against the run. And I know that maybe you could say the stat gets skewed a little bit because they got gashed for 326 yards last week against Pittsburgh, but they give up 138 rushing yards per game. Compare that to Miami's rushing defense is very good. They're top 20 in the country. They give up just 100 yards per game. Let's not talk about the passing defense, though. But the rushing defense for Miami is pretty good. But from a Virginia Tech standpoint, obviously the Pride defense comes from, the old Bud Foster, Frank Beamer lineage. So it's kind of a throwback to, what you used to see in better days for Virginia Tech. And their top linebacker, Hollyfield, is really, really good. He makes plays all over the field, Blue. But, you're going up against, again, an average to slightly below average rushing defense. You think Miami's going to get it going this week?
Well, you know what, Alex, I'll be honest with you. You would think that they would. But again, so many factors play in. And we came into that middle, and I hate to throw that back, but that Middle Tennessee game was one of those games that you say, you know what, you can never take any game for granted, especially a homecoming game on the road where there's going to be a sellout. And if you make one mistake, it could get into your head a little bit. And these Miami players, I know you could say all they want, like, we got to rally and things are going to be different, but they've got to be different. You just can't say that they're going to be different. And what has to happen for Miami to be successful is they have to execute. And execute means no drop passes, no fumbles, no crazy penalties way away from the play that makes no sense at all. And to me, there's so many factors that could put Miami on the downside in this game. They've got to find a way to reverse that. And because when you look in reality, it's good in you and I to sit here and say, hey, you know what? Oh, Miami should, and they would. And yeah, but you got to still dress that team out and play the game. And you got to go out because you're playing with Power 5 kids against, on the other side of the ball, whether they're as good or as seasoned or, experienced, it doesn't matter. They're always capable, as a friend of mine would say, that 230 hitter is always capable of hitting a 3-run homer to beat you, Yeah. So that's very important to understand that you have to limit the big plays. You're not going to stop a team totally, but you have to limit the big plays. Don't let the crowd get into it because, whether you think so or anybody else thinks so, that makes a big difference. And, when you have an opposing crowd that's into the game and making life tough to hear and, make it, because these kids aren't used to, they went to Texas A&M and certainly Texas A&M in my book is way overrated. They played a good game against Alabama, but that was an Alabama team without their starting quarterback. But the thing is they went in there with a mindset that, we're going to play even with them. And they did. Actually, they outplayed them. But you look at the end of the game, they come up with a loss. So, to me, there's a lot of intangibles that have to go into a win. Where you have 27 first downs to your opposing team's 14, and you have 501 yards to their 275 and still lose the game. You could game plan and execute all you want, but if you don't get the ball into the end zone and get points, you're going to lose. And that's my point. And you brought up a good point about somebody like a Jalen Knighton. If he's not doing the job running from the line of scrimmage, then get him in space. He's very valuable to get in space. Like you pointed out, he made the catch, he dropped one, but that's going to happen. But you need to get him in space. He's probably one of the fastest backs in the ACC. He's still a very good running back, despite all the things that he's did wrong in that game. So you get him in space. You have Parrish, who's your best line from scrimmage runner, in between the 20s, and he may bust one or go for 50. That's what you got to do. You got to kind of mix it up, play to your strengths. And the funny thing is obviously, like, one of the kids, I think I told you this story a couple of weeks ago when I was watching the game. He made a great play, on one of these really nice plays, a nice design play. And he kind of looked over to the opposing team and he goes, I watch film, so, and that's important to understand that Virginia Tech is watching film and they understand what's going to happen. So, what I think, if Gaddis could show his real mettle here and throw him a curveball and then all of a sudden come out with Thad Franklin, who you only ran 3 times in the last game for some crazy reason.
I don't understand it. Yeah.
No. And they're going to play safety coverage up top on Will Mallory because they know, excuse me, he's got wide receiverish type of speed, but tight end size. And, so with that in mind, throw him a curveball, do something else, throw to Brashard Smith, get somebody else involved. And that, if you look at schools like Oklahoma and Alabama, well, we won't use Oklahoma.
Yeah, let's not use Oklahoma this week.
Yeah. But in Alabama or Ohio State or Georgia, what they do is they come at you with different people all the time. So, and you say, wow, where'd that guy come from? Well, that's what I'm saying. Not every team is the same and not all matchups are the same. And, you may go into this game, and as you mentioned, linebacking wise, Virginia Tech is not bad. So that means you may want to go away from some of the things that you did last week, in the game against North Carolina, who is young at linebacker, young in the secondary, but not terrible, up front. So that's what I'm saying. So you're going to face a different team, a team that doesn't have the talent. And obviously they've been losing games and losing them pretty handily, but everything changes week to week. And that's why I say going in, I 100% agree with you. Miami should go in here and take care of business, but it's a different week. And will the Miami offense that had 500 and something yards last week show up again? I mean, you don't know. They didn't show up the game before. They showed up the game before, and the 2 games before that, Southern Mississippi, they kind of went into a shell. And to me, and I've said this, and I said this in a post-game press conference. I said, if Mario Cristobal comes in here today after the North Carolina game and takes blame, I'll scream. I'll scream. It's been 30 years since he put a uniform on. All they could do, and this coaching staff prepares that team. They can't play the game.
Sure.
They prepare them extremely well. They can't make tackles. They can't run the ball. They can't throw the ball. And he's got to stop that, because everybody in that room knows that Mario Cristobal and his staff had spent that 7 days busting their tail to game plan to put these kids in the right position on both sides of the ball. So to come in and say, well, that was on me. No, it wasn't on you. You got to stop that. Because if you watch and and you're at the game. So if you're there, like let's say the Duke game in 2 weeks, look down in an hour before the game and look who's the energetic guy and look who's going from place to place and never stops, your head coach.
Yeah,
so for him to take the blame, it's my fault. It's not your fault. It's their fault for not coming out with their hair on fire. And that's what's got to happen this week. You've got to kind of silence that crowd. Yeah, they're going to be, you're going to have 65,000 people that 92% are going to be Virginia Tech fans. So you have to take them out. You take them out early, like back in the day. And it's never been easy for Miami to play there. You know that. Lane Stadium has not been a friendly place for Miami for as long as I can remember, back in the Michael Vick era and all that. So, yeah, Miami's got to turn the tables. And like I said, it's a good thing that this is a day game, because it changes the entire atmosphere. I've been there. I went there in 2005, and I'll tell you what, that nighttime crowd makes a whole big difference. They've had that all day to party, and then as soon as they come walking, from the building through the tunnels and all that stuff, and all of a sudden you hear Enter Sandman, it kind of puts the intimidation factor on the other team. So, people say, oh, that's garbage. It's not garbage. There's a lot to be in a home team. And that's why home teams always say, well, home teams have a 7-point advantage because of the fact that what they get at home. So I think you're 100% right. Miami is a better football team. And it's tough to say that because you're only in the first year of what I think is going to be a great career for Mario Cristobal, but you could see the personnel. Miami's getting better personnel. They're inserting young kids. And that's the thing too. I think you and I talked about that last time that we were here. You said, will Coach Cristobal use those young kids and how comfortable will he be? Well, you answered it. Jaleel Skinner, he feels extremely comfortable with him, and Colby Young and guys like that. to the point where he's inserting them in the game now and not even thinking twice and saying, well, he doesn't, they're freshmen. No, he sees them. And I think there's so much negativity when he comes up with, you practice how you play and blah, you have to do it in practice. 100%.
How you do anything is how you do everything.
I 100% agree with it because of the fact that how else are you going to determine who's going to be the starter other than what they're doing in practice? Because if they go about their business in practice, as well as I do, there's no way that Mario Cristobal and that coaching staff is going to sabotage their program by using a guy that doesn't belong to start.
Exactly.
And and remember, the media doesn't get to see anything. They get to say hi for 10 minutes and then come back at the post game, but they don't know what's going on. So what it is, it's like you and I, when they were looking for coaches, after Al Golden and then after, Manny, and everybody speculates because they don't hear. If you don't hear anything, then they kind of make up stuff. So all these media people, start making up these scenarios and how, it's garbage that you don't, this guy should be starting. No. In Thad Franklin's case, you could see his on-field impact. And so when I say that, because I know people are probably saying, well, Larry, you just said that, how do you know what's going on in practice? And I've heard that sometimes that Thad don't practice as well as he really should be.
Can we pick up this thought on the other side, Blue?
Yeah,
and I want to ask Larry Blustein about Mario Cristobal recruiting the area, because with a lot of vibes about maybe Ruben Bain is going to leave the state, it's getting a lot of people worried. Hey, we're paying this coaching staff a lot of money and they can't lock down the South Florida kids. So we're going to get to that and more right after, guys. We have to talk about Underdog Fantasy. This episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to spice up college football season. Guys, it's so easy to get started. I've been playing Underdog since 2020. So easy to create an account, very easy to deposit, withdraw. You're making real money here, guys. Go to the Underdog website or the Underdog mobile app and look for the different pick'em choices, okay? We've got selections for our game this week, guys. I like Tyler Van Dyke higher than 240.5 passing yards. I like Will Mallory higher than 55.5 receiving yards. It seems like a gimme. I like Virginia Tech's Caleb Smith, their top wide receiver, higher than 67.5 passing yards, given what Miami's been giving up lately. Go to Underdog and make your own picks. You can use mine if you want. You can fade my picks if you want. It's so easy to play, and it's available in over 30 states. Just pick between 2 and 5 players across any team. Decide if they're going to finish higher or lower. One of the easiest fantasy to play games out there. You can win cold hard cash with a single game. Sign up with our promo code Locked On at Underdog Fantasy. That's all one word. And Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. It's that easy. Deposit $100, get $100 free. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or find the Underdog Fantasy app in the App Store or the Google Play Store. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Locked On. Get in on the college football pick'em action today. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts, available free on YouTube. So, Blue, they're Ruben Bain, Miami Central stud, and a Miami legacy. He's even got, a brother who's on the staff, I believe, as a GA. So there's a lot of Miami connections for Ruben. He just got a crystal ball to Auburn for what that's worth earlier this week. And we know Alabama has been recruiting Bain heavily, as has Miami. There's a lot of concern that he's going to leave the state. Do you share that concern?
Well, the only thing that I heard now, and it probably won't happen, is they said if Deion Sanders gets a job at Auburn, then he's going to go. And there's a few guys that are going to go. But I don't think Deion will leave where he's at. He came there for a reason. He wanted to put a stamp on the HBCU division, and he wanted to make sure that the HBCU programs were elevated and spotlighted. So I don't think he's leaving. You know what? It's really tough read because of the fact that Ruben, there's a lot of people in his ear. And when that happens, no matter how many relatives you have, and then I believe he's related to Carlton Davis from Miami Norland, who was an Auburn defensive back, is in the NFL, I believe, was with Tampa Bay. And that was another reason why I heard there was a rumor. But it's a tough read, because when I had him on the show, our radio show during the summer, he was, and everywhere you see him, it probably doesn't mean much, but he wears University of Miami stuff. It's a real tough read. You would think that that things are, and they haven't stopped. They're going crazy to recruit him, and they should be. Obviously, just because you can't take anything for granted. So to answer your question, I'm not concerned, but I wouldn't be surprised, at this point, because there's a lot, especially with the NIL deals going on. You don't know if anything is for sure. And the other thing is, all the talk about Brandon Inniss was the same thing. Is people said, you go to Ohio State and you're going to be another dude for a while. You come to Miami and you're wide receiver 1. Right off the bat. I mean, it doesn't. Inniss
would be for sure.
Yeah, but so that's what I'm saying. So in those cases, I'm never going to close the door until the door's closed, till they sign and, or they're gone and on campus. So I'm not real concerned, but at the same time, you know how recruiting is, and how, and John Beeson was a perfect example. Even though it was a different time, everybody had him signed, sealed to Georgia as a running back.
Right.
And he and his mom took the visit to Miami as the only 2 people that weekend. And it kind of switched his mind, hey, they showing a lot of love towards me. So anything can happen, Alex. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'd be a little bit disappointed, because I thought he was kind of a Miami, as you said, Miami legacy, has a lot of ties to Miami, and his family gets an opportunity to watch him at home. And yeah, they have to solidify Dade County. They've done pretty well,
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that, because, and we've seen some big time players verbally commit in this class 2023, outside of South Florida, even outside of Florida, like Jaylen Brown to LSU, Hakeem Williams committed to Florida State. And so, and a lot of people they're already acting as if Ruben Bain is gone, which again, it's not over with him for sure. But I see a lot of fans like freaking out, like, hey, like, is this staff actually going to start locking down the area? Nobody goes to more high school games than you do, Blue. Like, nobody has better connections than you do. How do you feel Cristobal and this staff are doing with the local high schools?
Well, you've got 3 premier players. I mean, that everybody wanted and everybody still wants. And Nathaniel Joseph from Edison, who's a game changer, Robbie Washington and Bobby Washington, who are game changers. So you still have them, to start with. And, you look back in the heydays, and, maybe in the 80s and into the 90s and the early 2000s, Miami lost guys like Derek Thomas and Steve Hutchinson and Marvin Jones and all these guys. And it's going to happen. It definitely is going to happen. But if you could get maybe 5, 6, 7 kids in each cycle from South Florida, not just because, remember, Broward has become a very big time player in the athletes that they produce as well. So if you could get, I'd say 5 or 6 kids in each cycle, that's over a 4-year period. That's like 20 something kids from just one area, which is pretty darn good. Because you look at some of the areas like a Birmingham, Alabama, they don't get a lot of kids from Tuscaloosa and Birmingham. You get a lot of kids from Mississippi, and they're more of a national team. Same thing with Ohio State. Get a lot of kids from Pennsylvania. They get a lot of kids from Michigan. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. Even when the success that Oklahoma's had, 75% of their rosters from Texas. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's important to get really good players from your home area, but it's not essential to get as many as these people think. You don't want to get, like they did that year, all those kids from Northwestern. How'd that work out? Right. I mean, it didn't work out real good. I mean, you had, like, out of that class, Jacory did real well. Sean Spence and Brandon Washington were probably the only guys to and force them to do anything at the next level in the NFL. But my point is this: don't be consumed at what they're not getting in Miami-Dade County, but consume that you got a Francis Maragoa from outside the area who's a stud. And eventually, I think guys like him and all the three tight ends that they've been able to get, and some of the other kids from outside, the Gary and people like that, if you win, then these kids are going to want to come here. And, and that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't put too much stock into it. If you could get, I think if they get 2 or 3 more kids from this area, what's wrong with that? Having 5 and 6 kids in a cycle like this? Nah. I totally disagree when I hear that all the time. Oh, you should have more kids. Why? Well, if you could get better kids somewhere else, well, go get them.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
But like I said, Alex, they got 3 really, really good kids right now. And certainly when some of these next year, they're going to still have kids from last year, like Restrepo and players like that come from the area. Now, I think they're doing okay. I mean, like I said, anybody would take the 3 kids that they have right now. Believe me.
We're going to take a look, final preview thoughts, and guys, some of the important numbers courtesy of Bet Online, because again, Miami's favored this week. I know you guys had a problem with that last week, and Miami did lose to North Carolina. The Hurricanes are favored once again. Keep it locked right here to Locked On Canes. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. Let's take a look at some of the numbers for this one. Miami at Virginia Tech, courtesy of Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. So, Blue, the Miami Hurricanes, they are 7-point favorites in this game on the road. The over-under is 46 points. So it's 2 struggling offenses, yes. So you can understand why the number, like for college football, 46 is really low for an over-under. But you can understand it because Miami can't score in the red zone. They were bad on 3rd and 4th downs last week against North Carolina. They were 8 for 20 on 3rd and 4th down. And Virginia Tech's offense, they're basically ranked in the hundreds in almost every statistical category. I will say, though, Blue, I think Virginia Tech's offense, they are trending better. I mean, for one thing, they got one of their top running backs back last week, Malachi Thomas. I would say he is their top running back. And so they're now more whole in the backfield, and Thomas ran really well against Pittsburgh. Obviously Grant Wells isn't having a great start to the year at quarterback, but he's been trending better the last couple of games. His highest Pro Football Focus ratings have come in the past 2 games, and he's got some good targets to throw the football to. Caleb Smith, their top wide receiver, averages over 16 yards per catch. He scored a couple of touchdowns. He's got over 400 receiving yards so far. Their tight end, Nick Gallo, is a big target at 6'4" and a solid target. So with the way Miami's passing defense has gone recently, obviously you have to worry, are they going to have any blown coverages? Because it only takes one, Blue, because the Hurricanes defense really tightened up in the second half last week. I mean, they gave up Drake May threw for over 300 yards, made some big plays in the game, but Miami didn't give up a whole lot in the second half, but the damage was done in that first half. It only takes 1 or 2 coverage breakdowns, as we've seen, to give up 75-yard touchdowns.
Well, the thing about Grant Wells, he's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns. So that's a pretty good factor to have in. But at the same time, you mentioned that Malachi is coming back, but Keyshawn King has done a pretty good job. He's not a terrible back. The kid has run. I watched him a little bit last week. I mean, he runs the ball extremely well. Is he what they've had in the past? Probably not. But to me, what's going to happen on the offensive side of the ball is, you remember back in the day when Miami used to get bullied by the big offensive linemen, the quality. They don't have that. They have young kids, but they don't have seasoned veterans. If you remember, like the kid Jim Pine and guys that they had, when you would come in there, they'd have 5th-year seniors that are 23 years old, and they've been there a while. They don't have that, and that's the one difference right now that I think, from an offensive standpoint, that Miami has a unique advantage. And you can't say that all the time when they go up to play they play Virginia Tech in itself. You always go, Miami's going to have a tough time up front. I don't think that's going to be the problem. I think that, you know, especially offensively, they're not going to be able to. I think you'll have a lot of holding plays because Miami's very quick off the edge. You look at the play that a lot of the Miami defensive ends have been having. I mean, you know, you can't say enough about how Mitchell Agudi and guys like that have been able to play. Their linebacking core.
Mesidor has been solid.
And that's what I'm saying. You know, everybody wants to, and this is my big discussion. Everybody wants to say, Corey Flagg. Corey Flagg's a second leading tackler in the ACC.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
He's played really well. The thing I've noticed, like, people just love to nitpick Corey Flagg so much. Like, he'll have a really solid game, but people will find one play where he looks slow in coverage, and they're like, "This guy sucks." Like, they'll look at that like, he doesn't.
He led Miami in tackles last year. He's going to lead him again. He leads him by 26 now. So yeah, I know you got to stop that because he's a productive guy. And the thing is guys like Wesley Bissaint, they play off of him. Because they see, wow, he's a playmaker. And I don't care if he's 6'1", 190 or whatever, early 200s. It doesn't matter. The productivity is everything. I say it all the time. You could be 6'6" and 340 and not do a damn thing. So to me, my point is this: the Zach Thomases of the world who are undersized and everything, oh, he's too small. But look at the end of the game. People like that fill up the stats. And he's certainly one of them. I think secondary wise right now, they're kind of in flux. I think I think that Ivey's playing a whole lot better over the last 2-3 games. But then you look at and Kam Kinchens I sat there and told you 3 years ago that he was the big steal that nobody knows about. Yes. He's the best player on the defensive side of the ball. He's a playmaker. 100%. He makes things happen. You know, James Williams obviously is the dude, but you could be all the size you want and all the quickness you want, but if you don't make plays at the end of the day, you look
He's less consistent. Like Kam Kinchens is more consistent than James
by
Williams.
By far. And you know what? The whole thing is if he keeps playing the way he has, I think he and Corey Flagg are going to find themselves on the first team of the all ACC at the end of the year. They will, because you look at the productivity and they're going to be, from the stat wise, they're going to be way up top. And that's what I'm saying. But I think Miami struck gold with Mesidor, who's another guy when he's healthy. I mean, he's got that first step. That's crazy. He's longer. He has a passion for the game. Yeah, on both sides of the ball, Miami's got the playmakers. Now they just got to come to play, and they've, if they come to do what they did last week. I mean, and I'm telling you again, North Carolina statistically will be one of the top 5 offenses in the country at the end of the year in the country, not just in the ACC. So to do what you did against them and trade punch for punch shows you that you could play with anybody when you don't make a lot of mistakes. And I thought they showed character. It could have unraveled really big in the first quarter, in the first half, but it didn't. They showed character. They made plays. They forced May into doing things that he wasn't used to do. And then they got a great performance, obviously, out of Tyler Van Dyke, who all of a sudden, and this is what I'm saying, after the Middle Tennessee State game, you had all these people, the Hurricane fans or whatever, oh, he's the worst. He won't even go in the 9th round and all this stuff. But now after a performance last week, he's right back in, he's as good as Bryce Young. Make up my mind,
Yeah. So I want to get to, but before we wrap it up, I want to give predictions. And so this way people will know they can blame me. Like if the game doesn't go the way you want, it's all Donno's fault, right? Because if I pick Miami to win and they lose, it's my fault. If I pick Miami to lose and they lose, I jinx them or whatever. But so the Hurricanes, for historical context, they have won 4 of the last 5 meetings with Virginia Tech, 7 of the last 10. And so I'm wondering how this one's going to go. Blue, I do think Miami gets the dub here. I think we saw progress last week. It's obviously about execution on offense, and I think you're going to need to create some turnovers on defense. Thankfully, you're going up against a quarterback who's thrown more INTs than touchdowns this year. I'm going to go with the Canes to get a 31-21 dub. I'm going to go with Miami to win, and I guess by my logic, you could cash that over 47 as well, which I do think is a really, really low number, even with 2 struggling offenses. So I've got Miami getting a 10-point dub, 31-21 in Blacksburgh. What say you?
I have Miami winning. I don't think they're going to cover. I think it'll be 34-28. They'll come in right at the end, and I just think that, Miami will, find a way to pull it out in the end, only because they have more of an offensive attack and they could be relentless on the offensive side of the ball. But their defense still remains a concern to me. From a cohesive standpoint, they're going to have to get pressure. They're going to have to play well on the backside. So, yeah, I think it'll be 34-28. The crowd's going to keep Virginia Tech in the game.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Make sure you guys follow Larry Blustein at Larry Blustein on Twitter. Make sure you check out his awesome high school football show on 560 WQAM. And I know, Blue, sometimes you guys jump around with all the sports games going on. Are you usually on Monday nights, right? Is that the normal night?
They're putting us now on Tuesday. We're on after Hurricane Hotline because now with WQAM, they've pretty much taken every sports team that's breathing in South Florida and having them on the station. So we have to dance around the Heat and the Panthers. So this coming week will be Tuesday 6 to 8, and the following week will be Wednesday from 6 to 9. We'll be a lead into the Miami Heat. So, and this week we're working on a really nice guest, former University of Miami Hurricane Bill Hawkins, who will have his jersey retired at South Broward next Thursday. And we're hopefully that Bill's going to join us on our Tuesday show and talk a little bit about that, what he's doing now. Remember, he was as good as anybody back in the day, and certainly went on to play professionally with the Rams. And yeah, I'm excited. But we usually have high school guests, college guests, and it's a lot of fun. And we cover every college in the state. We have either a reporter or a coach or so, and they come on and talk a little bit about every team. And obviously we do a hurricane segment every single week. You've joined us a couple of times, and we'll be fishing you in a couple of weeks again to get you back on. And we even had our boy Josh Darrow on 2 weeks ago, which was fun. We hadn't talked to him, but he's got a unique perspective that nobody else has. He's a sideline reporter who hears all and sees all.
Yeah, no doubt. So make sure you check out Blue's work. Guys, make sure you're supporting the entire Locked On network, like Locked On ACC. I join Candace every Thursday. Make sure you make them your second listen. Thanks for making us your first. Miami Hurricanes at Virginia Tech Hokies, 12:30 p.m. on Saturday, October 15th. Let's get that dub. We'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.